America, welcome back into the Business Pulse, brought to you by Freedom Chamber, the pro-American business network, online at freedomchamber.net. The usual suspects, it's Rod Martin, it's Dean Owen. You can find Rod online at rodmartin.org and the Martin Report, and you can find Dean online at owencpa.com, and he has a newsletter. I highly suggest you subscribe to both of them. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of business. The S&P, as I'm talking to you guys right now, is at an all-time record high. The Federal Reserve is hinting they may drop interest rates 2 times, maybe 3 times before the end of the year. We've got GE investing back into American manufacturing, which Dean and I off the air were talking about. We'll finally get a washer and dryer made in good old America. And $92 billion in the energy sector back in Pennsylvania. Rod, take it away. Give us your thoughts inside the Business Pulse here.
No, it's just a complete repudiation of everything that was said about the Trump agenda. Everything he's doing is working, and not least in the last number I heard, $17 trillion in new investment committed to manufacturing and other projects in the United States. That's unbelievable. I mean, that's the size of the Chinese economy coming into America in rapid order. And that creates a shocking number of construction jobs and mining jobs and all kinds of things. And then you've got the factory worker jobs that come after that, and all of the second order business consequences that come from it, from trucking to retail to whatever you want. And all these things are happening at the same time that we're supposed to be in a recession, because tariffs are awful. But tariffs haven't proved awful. Tariffs have actually not proven to be attacks on the end consumer. I'm not going to pick on our friends too much, as I have said through the years. It is ultimately, it can be if you do it the wrong way or too long. But the truth is, foreign manufacturers have been absorbing the costs of these tariffs, and that's a big deal. And it also helps rectify our trade deficit issues as they not only open their markets to U.S. producers, but increasingly seek to renegotiate the terms of their deals to make some of these tariffs go away. It's just going to be an ever-ending negotiation with Donald Trump, and it's just going to get better and better, and everybody's going to get richer in the process.
Yeah, the latest inflation numbers out, 2.7-ish. What in the world? How many times did we hear, oh my God, that's a tax on the American people. It's going to cause inflation. It's going to do this. It's working. That GE plant, that's coming to Louisville, Kentucky. I'm pretty grateful for that. We need those jobs up here, and they're good jobs. These jobs pay very well. This is not the old sweatshop I remember as a manufacturer where you had to manually put the wheels on the tires of the car plant. It's very highly dealing with high-end automation, dealing with robotics, dealing with technology. So these are not jobs Americans don't want. These are jobs Americans do want. They pay well. They provide families with good benefits and futures. And how does anyone not just celebrate this all day long? And you got 2 other things going on. You got a big tax cut that has already happened. People haven't felt yet because it happened mid-year and they're not adjusting their planning yet, but they're going to have a lot more money in their pocket come January or whenever they get their taxes done. And part of what DOGE is doing is using artificial intelligence and some very, very advanced computing power to go through every single regulation there is. And Donald Trump has set a firm goal that by January 20th of next year, he wants half of them gone. So instead of 3 to 5 years to get a permit to build a road or to drill a mine, you talk 3 to 5 weeks, at worst 3 to 5 months. That's setting up 2026 to have an absolute amazing takeoff. We are seeing a little bit of structure and a little bit of weakness in the jobs market. 2 months ago, we told you it had cracked. We didn't say it was broken. We said it had cracked. We are seeing that. That's setting up. Finally, the Fed may get their interest rates down here next month. And, they need to cut at least a half a point, but I don't know if they will. But, the market's pricing in 3 cuts this year. I tend to think more like 2 just because it is political. But nonetheless, you're getting, we're likely to see our home mortgages down in the low 6s, high 5s. That's going to bring a bunch of people into the housing market. We're seeing an extremely high inventory in housing, where just a couple of years ago is extremely low inventory. Now we're seeing a lot of houses for sale. Those interest rates get right, those houses are going to start moving. And every time you sell a house, you end up selling a semi-load full of accessories, furniture, rugs, carpet, all that stuff. And just the secondary effects of getting the housing market back going again. We're likely to see 4 or 5% GDP growth next year. I know that sounds crazy. Like that, last year at this time, somebody told me that. I'd told them that's crazy. But now I'm saying it because it
It's
looks
not at
really
all
good.
crazy. And Donald Trump was pretty big on that point in the first term. At the beginning, he was saying, look, we should be targeting not 2% GDP growth or 3% GDP growth. We should be targeting 4. And there's no reason we can't reach 4. Now, all my life, I've heard very smart people talk about how, oh, that's not possible in a mature economy. And of course, they're contrasting us with China. And China's growth was not ultimately sustainable, but that's not really the point. The real point is the assumption that you can have a mature economy is false. By that standard, we had a mature economy in 1925. And how much has the economy grown since then? How much new technology is there since then? It's constantly changing. And so, yeah, there's no reason for us not to have 4% economic growth, except all the regulatory burden and all the tax burden that is preventing American business from taking off. And Donald Trump is starting to kill that.
Yeah, and I noticed some numbers this morning. Over twice as much tariff revenue year to date as same over period last year. So this president is a businessman. He thinks like a businessman, and that means he thinks in terms of revenues and expenses. You can't cut expenses enough. You got to drive revenue, and you don't do it from the American taxpayer. You do it from non-voters, non-Americans. That's where the tariff comes in. You set the tariff low, not enough to stop trade, but enough to offset the lower wages that are coming from China. That way you slow down China's growth. China's a wounded dog. I think China's doomed to fail, but the problem there is a wounded, sick dog bites first. But Rod had a great article out this morning talking about how this president has gotten NATO to be strong partners with America and go back to all the hand-wringing and the crazy liberal whiny stories about how we were attacking NATO and everything else. Well, Europe should be able to stand on its own in a couple of years, and we don't have to back them. And then we can focus and pivot towards Asia, where we do have some real threat.
And that, of course, means that we can stand with them when they need it. If there's actually a threat that requires the full alliance attention in Europe, then we're all stronger. I mean, can you imagine if Europe had twice the military it has right now? They wouldn't be worried about Russia. That wouldn't be an issue at all. I'm not sure that they should be now, because I think Russia is a Potemkin village, but that's not the point. They are fearful because they have no strength. And if we have strong partners, you see what's already happening. You see European partners starting to talk about helping us in the Indo-Pacific. And with the AUKUS deal to provide nuclear submarines to Australia, we'll see how things go because of the secondary tariffs, but I think a strengthening alliance with India, and certainly a burgeoning military in South Korea and Japan, all of a sudden you've got real muscle on the bone. And how does China attack Taiwan in the face of all those different variables? It doesn't. And so you postpone that to the point that they're no longer even able to contemplate it as their demography collapses and their economy with it. Trump's foreign policy is spot on.
Yeah, and he's got the big meeting with Putin in Alaska, and I'm no fan of Putin. I agree he's evil, blah, 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 but you got to deal with what you got to deal with. You deal with what is. And we can complain about what is all we want to until we're blue in the face and we get absolutely nothing accomplished. So this president accepts reality and starts to deal with that. And there should be a natural alignment among the American and the Russian people. We share many of the same values. They're very orthodox. It's a nation full of materials and resources, and they need capital. And this president's a deal maker. He's a businessman. So I'm going to step out on a ledge and make a prediction that at least they're going to talk about some type of Marshall Plan for Ukraine and Russia put U.S. assets in Russia, generating revenue for Russia and America, in Ukraine, generating resources and money and income for America and for Ukraine. And in that environment, you don't have Russia attacking anyone.
Exactly. And this is the essence of the Trump doctrine, commerce, not chaos. There's no reason we shouldn't be in Russia developing its resources and helping them develop a more modern economy. And I realize if you go to Moscow or St. Petersburg and that's all you see, you will get the idea that this is a modern country. This is nothing of the sort. It is a third world country. And I mean, you get outside of two cities and it's kind of a disaster. It doesn't have to be. And if we can get to peace here that everybody can live with, we can help rebuild Ukraine. We can help rebuild Russia. We can make a lot of money in the process, and we can potentially dislodge them from the Chinese who want to dismember and colonize them.
Right. And Russia and China are natural enemies. They've been at war multiple times, and Putin, as whether he's evil or not, that doesn't matter. He is in charge of his country. That's who we have to deal with. He does not want to be China's biggest customer or supplier because China will milk that country dry. China does not have the ability to live and produce and provide for itself. If you look at the Chinese debt, all of it inclusive from 2000 to today, their growth equals their debt, which means they made no profit. In 25 years, the country has never had profit. They simply borrowed money and spent it, and now they've got GDP equal to that. That's what the Chinese government and the Chinese economy are, nothing but a paper dragon. But it's a paper dragon with weapons. And like I said again, a weak, wounded, sick dog bites first.
Let me bring the conversation back over to the U.S. because all of it dovetails into each other with China and Ukraine and how that plays out. Taiwan, reading the Martin report today, talking about the strength in numbers out there in the Pacific with Japan and South Korea, and now what they're trying to do with protecting Taiwan and the interests. But let's talk about the energy sector and things that were brought into Pennsylvania over the last 24 hours. The $92 billion worth of energy and AI investment in just Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth alone. What does that do to strengthen the United States' their portfolio within the energy sector in the world?
Well, there's no end to the upside here. You can't do anything without power. And the more Democrats want us to power everything with electricity, the more electrical generation capacity you have to have. They're trying to put us in, bird blender wind turbines. And there's no way to maintain the kind of electric economy that they are proposing on such a basis. You have to have nuclear. So as we start to see this almost Manhattan Project level push by the Trump administration to introduce modern, high-tech nuclear into our economic mix, you have potential for even greater economic growth than Dean and I were just talking about, because the more power you have available, the more things you can do with it. And we just become a huge center of growth. Now, the Chinese understand that. They're building power plants like crazy. Whether they can capitalize on that is another matter. That's several separate issues. But America has to have power. And the more we have, the better. And that's a great mix between nuclear and oil, coal, natural gas, solar to a degree, it's getting better, and of course, hydroelectric. All of these things should be part of the mix. Trump is an all-in guy on all of these things, and I think that we're going to see a real renaissance.
Yeah. Just in my town of Paducah, within the last week, there's been an announcement of a $1.5 billion investment at the former gaseous diffusion site, which has been a waste cleanup site. Now they're going to flip that over and start enriching uranium, setting nuclear fuel, and doing a lot of other things. So the announcement is still new, so we don't have a whole lot of detail, but it did $1.5 billion investment in Paducah, Kentucky, red zone, flyover state, small town. That's a big deal. And it's happening all over the country. Pennsylvania, good for you. Glad for everybody. But we're going to see this kind of investment hit all over the country in big numbers. We've got to have the electricity for data centers. Nuclear is the way to go. Gen 4 reactors. eat the old waste and cannot melt down. They can be built for small form factor where you can mass produce them. You get them as small as suitcases up to the size of semi trailers and produce, and you think about what that's going to do for the world. How many deserts are there next to oceans? Well, we don't use desalination because it's too energy intense. Well, what if we've got these nuclear reactors? We could have just turn a whole bunch of deserts into very luscious Garden of Edens.
Absolutely can. The possibilities are just endless. I mean, that is actually one of the most transformative that anybody could name, but a little more pedestrian. If you have adequate nuclear infrastructure, you can power a laser-based Golden Dome that makes ICBMs, makes hypersonic missiles, makes drone swarms utterly obsolete because you're shooting them down at the speed of light. So you got to have power to do it. This is a way to do it. You mentioned small modular reactors. The SMRs at this point are able to be carried around in a semi trailer, for heaven's sake. And we're only going to make them smaller. And you're exactly right. They can't melt down. I mean, technologically are not capable of melting down. The waste problem has been a red herring for a long time. You could have always reprocessed the fuel. Jimmy Carter stopped our reprocessing in the 70s, but that gets 97% of what we call waste back as fuel that's ready to use again. And we could have been doing that all along, but now we don't even need to because we've got reactor technology that just takes the waste and uses it. So, we're on the brink, as I said, of a renaissance here. And thank God we've got a president who understands that without that kind of energy infrastructure, none of these other things we want to do are possible.
Yeah, and Rod, and you didn't even know this, but you hit on something very dear to my heart, is getting rid of the waste, because about 30 miles from where I sit is a massive stockpile of it, because for decades we enriched uranium here and then we stopped and the waste is still there. And being able to consume that waste and clean up that site is, that's something that speaks very personal to me, just my very local environment. Well, there's a lot of other places in the country too. We're going to be able to do the same thing, and those folks are going to enjoy those benefits. And
every negative we've heard all our lives about nuclear is being solved technologically. It is a virtually unlimited power source. It is safer than anything else we have, and we ought to be building them everywhere. And Donald Trump is.
And that will help. That will help drive down costs for small businesses to power what they're powering, be it their shoe factory to a trucking industry that's got to have lights on 24/7. To let's talk to Colleen out in Temecula, California. She's got a restaurant called Pop's Restaurant and Cafe, and she had a question for you guys. So we're going to dive into the mailbag because we're running up to almost our break here. She says, guys, I've got some confusion with my wait staff on what they should do. Should they be 1099ing? Should they be W-2ing? What should they do with the tips they're receiving? How's that working with all the legislation that's been passed? And Dean, I'll pass this puck over to you and see what you can do with it.
Well, first off, they are W-2 employees. You will not get away with calling them 1099 workers, period. That's period. Now, we do have some legislation out here that says those tips are going to be tax-free. We don't know how the IRS is going to report that on the form. There's going to have to be new W-2s where there's another box that says how much of your income was tips. You'll still pay Social Security, Medicare on that, FICA taxes, but not income tax up to $25,000. And there are some limits on how much you can make and still get that tax break. So I hear you. What I would suggest, jump on our website, get on our newsletter, because as soon as that IRS regulation's put out on how to process this, we'll pass it on to you. We're just not there yet. And I get it. Whenever we make big changes like this, it takes time to process it. And this is a negative because we don't have perfect information at this point. But anytime you do something really this big and this good, it's going to take a little while to rearrange, get the regulations, not the legislation, but in place for the IRS to figure out how they're going to do this. How are we going to do this for you? How are we going to prepare those things? So just hold tight a little bit. I know there's some confusion. We want them to make sure we're doing it right. There will not be any penalties for you just doing what you've been doing for now. You'll still get the benefits down the road. We just don't know the process yet. We know what the end goal is. We know where we're going. We know what the the promised land looks like. We just don't know how to get there yet.
This is why I love the Business Pulse. We covered anything from nuclear reactors to the Pacific Ocean and in keeping Taiwan safe and our enemies at bay, Ukraine, Russia. We also talked about the stock market, interest rates, and now we're going to close it out with where people can find Rod Martin online.
Ha. Well, they need to come to rodmartin.org, of course. That's rodmartin.org. And you should sign up for our newsletter, which is daily geopolitical analysis across a wide range of topics. And of course, also sign up to follow me on X, where we have over 270,000 followers just since early this year. And so that's just growing like gangbusters.
Could that be a correlation between the Business Pulse and that, Rod? That nice.
It absolutely is. It's all because of you, Chuck. I mean,
yes,
you did it.
Me, mark that down. Timestamp that right there. There we go. Where can people find Mr. Owen at online?
OwenCPA.com. Jump online. There's a chat function there. Get connected with my team. Costs absolutely nothing for the friendship and conversation. If you need something, we'll reach out. Let us know you need to talk. We'll set a time. You'll get some free time with us, figure out these tax bills and how they apply to you. We're there to help. We want to be a resource.
Gentlemen, as always,
OwenCPA.com.
Blessings to you guys. That's OwenCPA.com. Blessings to y'all. And thank you so much for all that you do for us here at the Freedom Chamber. And thanks for being a part of it. You can join us online at freedomchamber.net, the pro-American business network. This has been the Business Pulse.
My name is Dean Owen. I'm a CPA. I have a master's degree in taxation and a personal financial specialist. Tax laws are always changing. That's why you need a tax strategist, not just a tax preparer. You need someone to help you pay the least amount of tax legally. Because if your business and retirement tax planning is not tax smart, it's probably tax dumb. Let's fix that today. Call me. Let's disinherit the government and not your kids. That's what my team and I do. This is who we are. I'm a combat veteran, unapologetically American, unapologetically pro-God, pro-life, and pro-Second Amendment. If those are the values you seek in a tax and money advisor, call us. Again, let's disinherit the government and not your kids. We're not afraid to share our values, and we share them with you.